Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Football. It's finished Manchester United 2, Manchester United 0, Manchester City 2. I wish it was the other way around, but no, it's Manchester United 0, Manchester City 2. Another League Cup final for Manchester City. They're fourth in a row now, and a wonderful performance for Manchester City. It has to be said, beautifully played, tactically outplayed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to secure the win goals from John Stones and Fernandinho. I mean, you would normally don't expect those to be the two names who score the goals, and I think that in some way illustrates the issues that Manchester United had today. But those are the scorers, and that was and they got the win for Manchester City. It was interesting, a few points here, tactical points. And the first thing for Manchester City's point was they played without a traditional number nine. They had Sterling, Mahrez, Foden, and De Bruyne as their front four of sorts, you could say. And neither of them traditional strikers. They kept interchanging. All four of them kept interchanging, by the way. So you had De Bruyne sometimes swapping up on the left, sometimes swapping on the right. Sterling was switching between right and center. Mahrez was switching between right and center. So I think Foden probably was the only one who was more or less left or central. But I think he probably had clear instructions of what he wanted to do against Wan-Bissaka. But the other three were more or less interchanging. Sometimes Foden would come into the center as well. But it was wonderful. It kept United guessing on their toes because United didn't know who to pick up, who to mark. There were so many occasions when they were being overloaded on one side, and having so many issues. But the two goals both came from set pieces because of the lack of a number 10. They didn't have a focal point. So every time they were trying to put crosses in, they didn't have the height to score. They were trying to get through balls through, but they didn't have that one person who could run through a channel. So they didn't create a lot of clear-cut chances. De Bruyne had one shot of the post. I think that was probably the best chance of the game, aside from the goals for City. I can't think of too many other clear-cut opportunities. I mean, there were long-range speculative shots and a few chances where there could have been, if the better touch was better or pass was better, those chances. But there were no clear-cut chances that were created. But both goals came from set pieces. And the issue with the lack of number 10 is that they didn't have a focal point. But on the other side, on the flip side, where I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer lost this game, and he lost this game because he started with Maguire and Lindelof. And I actually expected Maguire and Beek to start for two reasons. One is, the defense looks a lot more solid when those two start, but also Lindelof hasn't played in a while. So, in such a big game, why would you even want to risk bringing on a player who's unfit? And I can't. I'm trying to rack my brain. The only explanation I can come up with, the only rational explanation that I could have come up with, was that Beek has played 3 or 4 games in a row, and he's a walking injury, waiting to happen. So you kind of take him off. But then I'm thinking the next game is against Watford. He's not going to play that anyway, and then he's got a week off until he plays Burnley. So why would you want to do that? And I think he got that wrong. And I said this before. I said I'm not Ole out. But every time he keeps trying to, have his favorites, he has his favorites, and every time he tries to show blatant favoritism, it pushes me further and further away from backing him, because I can't, in good conscience, I cannot even think of any good reason. There's no good reason for why he had to do that, other than the fact that, as I've said, he's got this issue that Maguire has got the armband, so he's got to start him. And you can't drop Lindelof because Lindelof is actually better than Maguire. So you can't drop Lindelof. So you've got to start him. So, he's in the situation where he's got to start picking both of those two players. And the butterfly effect of that is it makes the fullbacks, they've got to then come a little bit closer inside. They've got to tuck inside because they can't play wide because Maguire and Lindelof need protection. The midfield has to also drop deeper because, again, they have got to protect these two because, they don't want to be overrun. These two themselves, they play very deep. Right. And so it makes that whole back six, if you will, it just makes them so narrow and so tight that it just kills them as an offensive force. And when you play Bailly, what happens is, or any fast enough. I mean, it could have been Axel Tuanzebe today, but he's still, for some reason, Axel Tuanzebe had the game of his life against PSG, but apparently that's not good enough to get starts. He's only started one game since then, by the way, at center half. He's only started one game since then, and that was against Istanbul in the Champions League. So that's what you get, right? So basically you have those 6 there. If you play Bailly, you can then, it allows Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw to be fullbacks as opposed to being center halves. They can then push a little bit forward because Bailly's got the pace to cover. And so Maguire is not scared of somebody running behind him because he knows Bailly is there to cover. So they can go a little bit further forward. The midfield can go a little bit further forward because, again, they don't have to cover for 2, slow donkeys at the back. And then you've got, and that creates a better link-up play between the midfield and the attack. The other issue also is that, remember, United don't have a lot of pace in this team. They start Bruno and Pogba in their front 4, along with Rashford and Martial. Martial doesn't have a lot of pace either. For some reason, he's not the pacey winger that he used to be. I think as a striker, his pace is kind of limited for whatever reason. Rashford is the only one who has blistering pace. So when they go a little bit forward, their lack of pace is not an issue because they're playing further forward of the field, so they don't have to run as much. Whereas if you're playing deep, essentially what's happening is you've got to use more pace, you've got to use more energy to just get out the field. And so many times when the breaks were on, there were breaks on, and Pogba just couldn't get to the ball because he's so slow. Martial was too deep, so he couldn't turn and run. Bruno was had nobody up forward to aim for. I mean, and again, this is not to absolve anyway. I thought Bruno had a poor game. I thought I don't think anyone had a really good game. I think at best you could probably say maybe sixes out of tens. For most of the players, I don't think anyone had a good game. But I thought Bruno was shocking today. I thought probably at the front foot, probably Rashford is the only one who comes out with any kind of credit from that game. And that's little bit because he has the pace, so he actually troubled Zinchenko a couple of times. But I mean nobody else, and that's a little bit of credit. I wouldn't even go so far as saying he was you're basically saying he was probably the better of the bad bunch, right? That's what he was. Not even the best of the bad bunch. He was the better of the bad bunch, or a good among a bad bunch. I mean, it's an absolutely shocking offensive performance, but they were in part hindered because both McTominay and Fred had to sit deep because they were trying to protect those four behind them. So it's a butterfly effect, a ripple effect that happens just because of one change that he made, which is he brought in Lindelof for Baye, and hopefully, and we've seen this before. We saw this against Sevilla, we've seen this against Chelsea. The issue is, this. They're not bad in that they make constant mistakes, but A, it affects the team offensively, and B, they're always prone to this odd concentration lapse. And in cup games, that affects you because it happened against Sevilla as well. United were actually pretty good in that game offensively, but then two lapses in concentration, and it's 2 goals, and they've lost the game. Again today, same thing, 2 lapses in concentration, 2 goals, game over. And so you need a defender in there who can who cannot make those lapses in concentration. And even if those lapses happen, somebody can come in and maybe cover for that. But I mean, that's it's gone now. It's 4 straight semi-final defeats as well for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he's got to be thinking, what do I've got to do? But this one's totally on, and this one's totally his fault. Talking about City, though, I think we have to talk a little bit about Manchester City. I thought the first goal was interesting because it was actually an error from 3 players, and then McTominay, Shaw, and Maguire were around Stones. McTominay's got to do better in seeing what's behind him. He had no idea that Stones is behind him, and he's looking forward. You could kind of maybe absolve him a little bit, maybe because he's not got eyes at the back of the head, so that's okay. But still, he should have been aware. Shaw was actually looking straight at Stones, and for some reason he left him and decided not to mark him. I don't know what happened there. He's got to be aware that there's a player in front of him. He's got to get ahead of him rather than allowing him to run off of him. But the biggest culprit again was Harry Maguire, because Maguire actually let the ball go through him. He gets to the ball and he just decides, I think for some reason he forgets, he thinks that there's nobody behind him. He just leaves it. And for what, I don't know what's going through his mind. I really don't know what's going through his mind, that he says, you know what, it's okay, I'm just leaving this one. And he just goes like that. And I was like, what are you trying to do? Do you not realize that there's somebody behind you? He's a defender. He's supposed to be a defender. He's supposed to be a leader of that backline. I mean, it's so many issues there, and Stones didn't even see. Basically, the ball just hits him, right? So that he doesn't even know what's happening. The ball just hits him, and it just goes in. It's just shocking, terrible defending. And I mean, once they got that goal, I thought United did nothing throughout the game. By the way, they had no clear-cut chances. There was absolutely at no point did I think United are going to score a goal. They never looked like scoring a goal. And once that first goal went in, I was like, this is it, game's over. Because you got 40 minutes, but there's nothing. There's nothing. There's literally nothing that United have been creating. And maybe he could have made changes earlier as well. Solskjaer, maybe he could have brought in Daniel James or Greenwood earlier, because they needed that pace on the break, something to make the defenders think. But I mean, he was so scared. And again, this goes back. He was so scared of being broken upon. At that back line, and that's why he left at 4-2, those 6 players, because he was so scared of going 2-0 down and losing the game at that point. Because he knew 2-0 game was over. Right, so he was trying to make sure that they got to the last 10 minutes with 1-0 and try and maybe do something, but by then it was too late. City were already in it. So I mean, it's difficult. It's in some ways. I mean, I don't like to use the word, but in some ways it is small time game management. I think they have that issue. But I mean, a few notes here. I think for the future. I think one, hopefully, and I'm not holding out hope for this, but I hope that this is the end of Maguire Lindelof as a centre back partnership. As a number one center back partnership. I'm sure we'll see them in few games when there's need to be rotations and things like that. But I really hope in the big games, I hope this is the end of Maguire and Lindelof, because I mean, you cannot get more empirical evidence now to suggest that these two need to be broken up. These two can't play together. They can't do it. The issue, I think, is that Solskjaer is trying to dodge deciding who he wants to pick as his number one, because he knows on merit Lindelof has to be number one, but he knows that he's given the armband to someone, and that guy is he's got to play him. So and that guy carries a lot of cachet. So at the moment he's just deferring that, but he's got to grow a set and he's got to decide. He's got to pick one of them and he's got to stick with them, and it's being, but both of them together really should not be the number one partnership. Whether it's Twanzebe, Twanzebe will probably start against Watford. Let's hope he puts in a good performance, and maybe stakes a claim, really honestly. But it's maddening. It's saddening to see that, because I mean, it's not saying United would have won this game. I thought City were the favorites. I thought City were going to win this game at the start, but to not create anything, to not be able to do anything, and just because of one small tactical change, one small personal change that he made, I think that's a little bit disappointing. But I think that's hopefully the end of that. I think it should also be the end of any. And I've been saying this constantly. I don't think United are in a title challenge. They're not challenging for the title. They're in a top four race, and I think this game again proves why. Because against the smaller teams, United have enough quality up front to get away with results, to get away with playing badly. But against the big teams, against the Spurs, the just Chelsea's, the Cities, the Liverpools, and I include Chelsea in that. I know they're going through a bad form, but they're still in that. Not title based, but they are a big team. Against these teams, even Arsenal for that matter, they're the form team now. Even Arsenal, I think against the other big six teams, they don't have the quality to win games. They just don't, and they're not going to win those games. So you're looking at those points getting dropped, and they're going to need Liverpool and City and whoever else to drop points for them to win the title. That's not happening. So I mean, I think this game proves why United are not title challengers, why they're not going to win the title. So hopefully now this ends all talk of a title challenge. Hopefully for now we're not going to get that anymore. Hopefully, because they're going to lose to Liverpool when they go to Anfield. They're going to lose that game. That's quite obvious. I think if they play this way, they're going to lose that game. And they are going to play this way. He is going to play Lindelof and Maguire because Solskjaer is afraid of making, and this is the thing, he's afraid of making a decision. He's just like he's afraid of making a decision on Pogba. He doesn't want to alienate him, and he doesn't want to put him offside. So he's kind of picking him and playing him in a position that he clearly can't play. It's a compromised position where he's playing. And he's doing that because he's done well. I'm not saying he's not done well. He's done well, but it's a position that he's playing because he doesn't want to play him because he doesn't really want to play him in his natural position, because he's not good enough to play in his natural position. So he's got this compromise thing going right now. But in big games, it's going to show up like it showed up today. It's going to show up in against Liverpool as well. It's going to show up against other teams as well. And so they're not going to win the title for that reason. But I think those I don't know whether United are going to do any kind of business in the transfer window. I honestly don't know. I hopefully they'll bring in a centre half or a winger, but I don't think they're going to bring either. I mean, they've got Diallo in now. Hopefully that deal will go through without a hitch, but I don't see any major business happening. But on the other side for City, I think we have to talk about City. I think City were absolutely excellent today. The lack of a number 9, playing without number 9, that might come back to haunt them against bigger teams, against teams that have a better attack, maybe. But otherwise, it looks solid. I think the one thing that we never associated with City and the Pep was defensively solid, but today they look defensively solid. I think Ruben Dias has made a massive difference to this team, the way he's conducted things. I mean, that's, maybe Marcus Rashford can take Harry Maguire can take notes from that. And, from Ruben Dias. Ruben Dias actually, by the way, was one of the alternatives when Harry Maguire was signed. He was actually one of the players that United were looking at, but ultimately they went with Harry Maguire because he's English and, apparently he's captain material, but whatever. But Ruben Dias was absolutely excellent today. I think he looked very, very good. I think, we talked about the death of the number 10 and all of that. And quite frankly, today, two teams have shown that the number 10 is not dead. It's making a comeback. And we've seen the double pivot back as well. Both teams with the double pivot, by the way, today, 4-2-3-1. Which again, people were talking like that's probably over and stuff, but no, it's not. It's back again. It's a little bit different from the usual double pivots that we've seen in the past, where it's 2 CDMs. It's not 2 CDMs. It's 1 CDM and 1 roving midfielder kind of thing. But we're seeing that back again. I think more and more teams will start adopting that now because it's an effective way to stop other teams from breaking on you when you have 2 defensive midfielders as opposed to just 1. And then you have a number 10 who's not going to be a traditional number 10 where his job is just to pass and not do much, but actually tracking back, helping out in defense. And a lot of teams, even Bayern, have used that to great effect last season. So I think we're seeing that again now. We're starting to see it's an evolution of a role, but that role is not over yet. It's not dead yet. It's still there. I thought City used that perfectly today. And I thought tactically they were spot on. It's interesting as well to see right at the end, 87th, 88th minute of the game, right? United are trying to chase a game. There are 4 players in their own box. There are 4 players in their own box. Henderson is, he's collected the ball. He's trying to pass it. He's got 4 players in his own box. That's how deep United were playing. Even at 2-0 down, even trying to win a game, that's how deep they were playing. I mean, it's just madness to think. And against a team that apparently doesn't have a number 10. number 9. But I think the biggest observation for me for Manchester City is now, I think, you got to say that the quadruple is on at this point, because I mean the one win away from the League Cup. I mean, it's Mourinho, it's Tottenham, but I mean they look like that since that defeat to Tottenham, they've actually kind of tightened up. They've kind of changed the tactics a little bit. They've looked much more sharper, much more solid. I mean, there's 4 months to the game, so things can change, but you would have to think that they've got a good chance of getting that League Cup. I fully expect Liverpool to throw away the FA Cup. If not against Villa, they'll do it in the next round, but they'll do it because I think they're just knackered. I think Klopp just is like, I just want to win the league and the Champions League. I don't want anything and any other distractions. So I think he's probably going to throw the FA Cup. I fully expect that to happen. If he does, then you've got Liverpool and City have got a pretty straight run towards the FA Cup, because in on-current form, I can't see too many teams competing with them. So you got to say that they've got a big chance there. And the league at the moment, if they win their 2 games in hand, they will be they will be ahead of Liverpool. So and I don't see United anywhere near there. So you've got to say again that they've got a very good chance of winning the league as well. As long as they can keep up this form, I think they can win the league as well. And then it's the Champions League. And with this system that they've now applied, they look much, much more defensive solid, which has been their issues over the last 3-4 years, is their defense has let them down. But look, right now, it looks like the defense is holding firm. So they've got that. And they generally do get easy draws in cup competitions anyway. In the FA Cup, the Champions League, they generally get easy draws anyway. So you can easily see them. You can see them now maybe avoiding those kind of mishaps that they've had and actually going and winning the title, the Champions League title this season as well. It's a long way to go. I'm not saying they're going to do the quadruple. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's a very real possibility and a really, really good chance. I think this is probably their best chance in the Pep era of doing the quadruple. They can do it this season. If there's any season that they can do it, this season probably is one where they can think about doing it, because I think all the stars are kind of aligning in their way. So, but we'll see what happens. There's a long, long way to go yet. But you could put a bet on City. I think it's worth putting a bet on City if you were a gambling man. I'm not. But anyway, congratulations to Manchester City fans. Congratulations to Manchester United fans. I think it was a very good game for Manchester City. I think United just weren't in it. They never competed. Maybe that was because City are that good. Maybe because United were that bad. We don't know. But maybe it's a bit of both, really. I think this team is I mean, City are a team that their position doesn't really their current position doesn't really talk about how good they've been over the last few weeks. I think ever since Spurs, they've been really, really good. And I think we're now starting to see City kind of getting into motion, kind of clicking into gear and going ahead and steamrolling everyone probably, maybe. But with Manchester United, I think their position doesn't tell how they play. They've actually been pretty poor in all of the games. I think most of the games you can probably count on one hand, or the number of good games they've had this season. They've scraped out wins, they've eked out results here, there, but they've not actually been that good this season. So I think I think this might be the start of a downward spiral now for United. That's always the fear with United, isn't it? One loss and everything comes crashing down. Maybe that will happen, maybe not, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, commiserations to United fans. Congratulations, City. We've now got a Carabao Cup final to look forward to in April. So we'll see how that one goes. But thank you for watching. Take care. Please smash like if you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to the channel if you're new, so we can continue to grow this channel and continue to produce videos for you and for your enjoyment. All right, take care. Bye-bye.